Good morning, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. It's great to be back. I'm speaking to you today from beautiful downtown Airdrie, Alberta. This is my brother's place, and he asked if I would come and dog sit and house sit while they went fishing at the coast. So I was happy to do that. A little change of scenery is always good for everyone. So here I am. Let me just adjust this camera just a little bit here. All right, so I don't have my other favorite teacup because I'm not home, but nonetheless, I found a pretty mug to put my tea in this morning. This last week, my son sent me a video that I really appreciated. It was a powerful and moving TED Talk by a fellow who had been part of the suicide hotline in the community that he lived in for over 4 years. And he talked about not only his own attempt at suicide, but also having had a client who spoke her last words to him before she died of a suicide attempt. And I was just blown away because not only did he talk about how hard life can be and how hard life is, let's face it, but what he found was the defining piece for him that prevented him from ending his life, and that maybe the client didn't know at the time. So I want to share a little bit of that with you today, and share some ideas around that, because if you've watched You with Sue before, you know I'm all about being happy, about creating our brand of heaven on earth. Each of us has a different version of that. And do I want people to be happy all the time? Yes, I do. Does it happen? Well, not for me personally. I have my days where I'm not as happy as I'd like to be, whether it's because of circumstances, whether it's because of what's rolling around in my head, whether life isn't happening the way I would like it to happen. There's a whole variety of reasons that contribute to me being as happy as I'd like to be, or not as happy as I'd like to be. So it can be a struggle. Let's face it, life is a challenge. But one of the things that keeps me going is the belief that when we come here to planet Earth as these magnificent beings, we come to have this human experience, and it's all about what we can make of the life that we have. And we're here to experience. We're here to experience the raptures of joy and the depths of despair. We're here to experience the most mind-numbing grief and the most happiness that we can ever feel. Love on one end of the spectrum, hate on the other, fear at different times, and extreme acts of bravery and courage. It's all about contrast, and it's all about helping us to not only learn, but to grow beyond what we are, what we started with, what we came to, and in an odd kind of way, it's to begin to recognize who we really are, which is this magnificent being. Now, having said that, once we evolve to that point where we really do feel that we're more than what we initially were taught that we were when we were growing up and going through whatever we were going through. When we realize that, it doesn't change the fact that we may still have challenges to go through. We may still have lessons to learn. So I guess one of the easiest examples I can give you is in relationships. So so I've been married twice before, divorced twice. I've had a few other um, short and long-term lovers, and I'm alone now, and I've been alone for a while. And would I like another partner? Yeah, I would, but but I haven't found one yet. And so my dad was fond of saying that I wasn't a very good picker when it came to picking the men in my life to spend part of my life with. He just would shake his head and say, "Oh boy, here's another one." And so of course I grew up believing that I was wrong, that I didn't know how to do this, and I saw my brothers have lifelong partners and just one, and I'm going, well, there must be something wrong with me that I can't do that. And what I've come to realize is that part of um, the warring value in my head is I really value variety. Variety is the spice of life. Well, I guess when it comes to relationships, I've had quite a bit of variety. Now, having said that, I've also chosen partners, whether unwittingly or not, or even deliberately, that served to show me aspects of myself that I couldn't have seen on my own. And so it's a very fascinating thing to realize that at the core of it all was me. And really, in relationship, we see ourselves differently. And it gives us an opportunity to say, well, maybe more of this, less of that, more of this, less of that. Now, if you fall into the trap, which I did more than once, of thinking, well, it's my partner that needs fixing, not me. There's nothing wrong with me. But if only they would, and you fill in the blank, right? If only they would do this or not do that, or be this and not be that. When, of course, it isn't about that. It's about how we're dealing with whatever irks us, whatever irritates us, whatever's in our faces at that point in time. And let's face it, there are times when we have experiences with other people that are downright awful, downright miserable, and in some cases, life threatening. And we go, oh, why did I go through that? Like, what was that all about? Well, there are always lessons to be learned from every experience. And I find it so interesting that sometimes the toughest experiences we have and the most pain that we experience as a result of those teach us the most, help us to really dig deep and come into our own understanding or our own idea of now what? Where do I go from here? So if you've ever been, beaten down to the point where you're just lower than a snake's belly and there's you don't know where to go next, then you know what I'm talking about. And it's now how am I going to recover from this? Well, the fascinating thing about the human spirit is that we have this innate part of us that helps us at some point to rise up and try again. Rise up and hopefully do it differently, hopefully do it better. Will we know? Well, we'll know more because we've been through whatever it is we've been through, but maybe we won't have it all nailed. Maybe there's another step and another step and another step. When you start climbing a ladder, you don't go from the bottom rung to the top rung immediately. you go step by step. Well, I've certainly noticed that for me as far as relationships go, where the first relationship, I knew nothing about being in a relationship, never mind living with an intimate partner and trying to figure out how to do life with them. And so we both made lots of mistakes and came to lots of conclusions that while there was some safety in being together, that at some point we weren't serving each other and we weren't serving ourselves in the way we wanted to. And so there was an end to that. And that's hard, ending a relationship, because again, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't go to school to say, well, this is how you start a relationship, and here's all the key factors, and on and on. And nor did I find out, okay, now what's your exit strategy? If you find that you need to break away from this relationship, how are you going to do that? Here's the steps. Maybe there's some steps out there right now. There probably are more than when I was going through all this in the 60s. And so you do the best you can and feel mad, sad, guilty, shame, all of those feelings that rise up. Oh no, I'm a failure. Well, no, actually, you're not a failure. You may have failed at that particular endeavor, but that doesn't make you a failure. It gave you some life experience that you can learn from if you choose. Now, some people don't choose to learn from that experience, and then they go out and pick the same sort of scenario again and again and again until they transition back to whatever the notion of heaven is. And then, if you believe in reincarnation, you get to come back and try it all again. And so it's kind of like the never-ending story, right? It just goes on, and with different facets coming in, and so on. Well, in an odd kind of way, that gives me hope, because if I don't get it all nailed in this lifetime, then I'll be back, and we'll try something different. So I think we can agree that life is not, it's not simple. And I know when I was growing up, it felt like a much simpler time, because we weren't bombarded by all of these electronic ways of staying in communication. We didn't have, I was 4 before we had a television set. So so I had a transistor radio, and that was my connection with the outside world, other than face to face and so on. And if we wanted to get in touch with relatives who didn't live close by, we wrote them a letter and stuck it in the mail. So life was pretty simple. We didn't have a whole lot of toys. We made up games when we went outside, and we maybe had a wagon and a bicycle, but beyond that, there wasn't much. It was us. It was kids on the block. And nowadays, so is it better now, or was it better then? I don't know that it was any better. It's just very, very different. And so the kids growing up today are faced with a whole onslaught of challenges that I didn't have. My parents weren't particularly concerned about, nor were the other parents on the block, about us roaming the neighborhood at will and only showing up home for a meal. They just, out you go to play, and were they watching us? Were they concerned about us leaving our yard? No. We'd wander for blocks and eventually come home. Were they concerned about us walking 3 or 4 blocks to school on our own? No. It was a different time. And now you'll see parents who absolutely will not let their kids out of the yard unsupervised, because it's just not done. It seems like too scary a world to be able to do that. So there's just different challenges that we're faced with. And it's a struggle. There's no question. If you're a parent for the first time, the joys of having this little type that's yours, that's giving you extreme joy because maybe that's what you've always wanted, is offset by the sleepless nights and the endless worry and the I watch my son and daughter-in-law going through this stage of the twins' development that it's tough and there's questions and lots of times there's way more questions than there are answers. So it's a struggle. So why do we keep struggling? Why do we keep putting one foot in front of the other? Why do we get out of bed in the morning even when it feels hard and we just want to pull the covers over our heads and say, ah, forget it, I'm done here. Well, as this fellow talked about in the video, he talks about those perfect moments that happen that make life all that make life not so hard. And when I reflected about this, I realized that that's what keeps me going too. And the more I notice those perfect moments, I mean, we're surrounded by perfect moments, but do we pay attention to them? And in the flurry and the hustle bustle of life and the stresses and strains of getting through the day, we may not notice that perfect moment. But every once in a while, it could be stepping out your back door and the moon's full and the stars are out and it's quiet and there's this peace that just washes over you. And you realize this is a perfect moment. It might be for the first time I saw my son. He was in an incubator and there he was, fully formed and this wee scrap of humanity. And I felt my heart just blossom with love. That's the only way I can explain it. There was this overwhelming sense of this commitment that this baby, whatever this child needs, I'm going to do my darndest to make sure I can make that happen. And so there was this vow that I made because of this burgeoning love that just burst forth, and I wasn't expecting it. I didn't. It had been a traumatic birth for him and a scary time for me, and I so I was feeling a little bit numb about the whole thing. And then when I see him, there's this that just surprised me, delighted me, and just felt so good. It was a perfect moment. It was an absolute perfect moment. So when I think of the challenges, the tragedies, the traumas that every one of us goes through, like we don't escape that. I don't see anybody leading a struggle-free life. It's those perfect moments that help us go on to the next. It could be a smile from a stranger that just lifts up just that little bit. It could be the fact that somebody let you in when you were desperate to get in the other lane. It could be finding $10 on the pavement when you weren't too sure where the next bit of grocery money was going to come from. Well, all these moments add up to counterbalance what it is we go through. And of course, the other thing that can be so rewarding in life is when we're faced with challenges and we get through them. I think of the moments when I felt the worst despair ever. And I got through that moment. I got through that. And there was this sense of peace that was there because I had taken on something. And sometimes it was something that I didn't know was coming down the pipe, and then wham, I get this 2x4 experience. Other times it was something I deliberately chose to experience to grow from it. And usually because I was extremely fearful about doing that. When I took a course on stand-up comedy one time, it was because I was extremely fearful to do anything like that. And I didn't know if I could do it. And in fact, I was pretty sure that I would be a miserable failure if I attempted it. And to be able to come through the experience of being on stage, doing stand-up comedy, even 5 minutes, and to succeed at it was such a gift. And I was so pumped. And it was even more than the success of the initiative. It was the fact that I took on something that I was really fearful to do, and I got through it. I lived to tell about it. I overcame, and then nothing after that was quite so fearful because I had conquered one of my big fears. So that was a perfect time for me. The and all the struggle that led up to that, and the whining and crying, and I can't do this. I want to quit. I want to quit. And I didn't, and I didn't, and I didn't quit. And I kept on, and I kept on, and I kept on. Well, isn't that what being human is all about? Persevere. Go that extra mile regardless. And then there are other times when we say, nope, that's enough. I'm not willing to put in one more ounce of effort in that regard. And we walk away. And it's all good. It doesn't matter what your decision is. It's that recognition of where you want to go next. And sometimes the path that we've been on is not the path that we want to continue going on. We want to go over there, or maybe back there, or somewhere else. So again, it's all good. I mean, it's your life, and it's your decision on how you tackle it, on how you live it. And I guess if I've learned anything over the years, I've learned about the importance of really paying attention to living your life, because sometimes we create such a hell for ourselves because we're so immersed in all of the emotions that literally suck the life out of us. The blame, the shame, the guilt, the judgment, the hatred, the fears, all of those things can keep us so tightly bound that it isn't possible for us to see that there's more out there, that there's a better world that we rightfully deserve. But guess what? It's only us that can give it to us. I have to pick. I need to choose that, not this, not that. And in doing that, in really engaging with, well, what matters to me, and what do I want my life to be like? Instead of saying, oh, well, that'd be nice, but I have to do this, I should do that, I'm forced to do this, that, and the other thing. Well, really? Well, if you believe that, then that is true for you. You have to go to work. You have to do all these different things that you say you have to do, and you can't live your life in the way that you want to. But what if? What if you choose? I choose work because not only do I enjoy working, but it does put food on the table, and I really like to eat. so, so okay, well, yes, I get a free meal now and again, and friends are very good about inviting me over and so on. But for the most part, it's me looking after me. And so how am I going to do that? Well, one way is to earn a few bucks and make that happen. Same thing with a roof over my head. Well, so, so, but that's a choice because let's face it, there's lots of people choosing to live on the street. They're on the street, and it isn't they deliberately chose it or necessarily consciously chose it, and they may have some emotional issues that they're dealing with or life circumstances that just really somehow kick them to the curb and they're homeless for a period of time. Well, but do they stay there? And some do, and some don't. Well, what's the difference between the ones that stay and the ones that don't? And some of them you'll talk to them and they'll say, I don't want to go into the shelter. I'm happier out there. And you go, really? I wouldn't be. Oh, but that's your choice. And so there's ways out of everything. And I guess as human beings, we're particularly equipped to deal with a lot of that. And I think in the background, and there's no judgment on how we deal with lives. I've questioned myself many times. Sue, why in the world would you pick that again and again and again? And sometimes consciously so. Sometimes I just kept doing it. And I'm going, oh boy, well, do I beat myself up and add more misery to what I'm already experiencing? No, that's not a good plan. Sometimes I did. And then I said, you know what? Okay, I'm done with this now. And it's time to figure out a different way. Even if I don't know that there's a different way, I set the intention. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a different way. And sometimes it's just about waiting for the idea to come, waiting for this amazingly resilient brain that we have, heart that we have to get in sync to open up a path and allow that divine intervention to take place, and we can in a different way. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, talking about perfect moments. And in our struggles, there can be so many perfect moments. If you just pay attention to it, just look around and say, well, what's perfect? And or am I, even though I may be having all these struggles, is there a moment of peace? Is there time that I can set aside whatever it is that's most pressing in my mind or on my heart, and just say, wow, look at what I have there. Look at what I'm grateful for. And there it comes back, right? The gratitude for all that we do. And I mean, you look at some of the happiest people on earth. Do they have a lot? A lot of them don't. A lot of them have not even a tenth of what you and I might have, and yet they're happy. And you go, oh, how do they do that? Well, because they're happy in the moment. They're happy with the fact that Mother Nature is providing. They're happy with the sun coming up and the sun setting, the moon coming out and the moon going down, and the dawn of a new day. And so it's really in the little things for the most part. At least that's what I think. It's in the little things that make the biggest difference and frame those moments. Well, so what are you going to do about that? I really encourage you, as magnificent beings, to think about that. Take that on and say, wow, in spite of whatever else is going on in my life that maybe isn't perfect, maybe is causing me a great deal of pain, what is working? What perfect moments can I see in the day? The few minutes I spent with my child at the dining room table counting pictures with them, or putting together an exceptionally good meal, or the fragrance because you're that magnificent. If you're enjoying this, I really invite you to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can also download my app, The Measure, where you will find more videos on moments for Friday, and of course, soup. There's a bunch of articles on there as well, all free content for you. It's a free download, and will need a little uplift in your day. I have friends who look forward to connecting with me every week on TUC, and I'm so grateful for that because it's nice to know that you're listening in and that they get something from TUC every Friday, even face in person. So take good care, my magnificent ones. I look forward to seeing